Well, hello, Lauren from Churches. It is so lovely to be speaking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on the green room with me. How is everything in your world right now?
It's good. Yeah. I mean, all things considered, I am good. I'm very lucky and happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay. Well, I know this year has been a little bit of a roller coaster for us still after 2020. We've had a lot of, highs and a few lows. And obviously, on the opposite side of the world where you are, you've been witnessing a lot of various things going on as well. But we are now literally poised on the brink of a brand new Churches album with screen violence. Obviously, it's been a couple of years in the works now, but it's something absolutely beautiful. How does it feel to finally be unveiling it to the world?
It feels very good. Thank you for for saying nice things. Yeah, we're really excited for people to hear the fruits of our lockdown labor, I suppose. And yeah, God knows people need something to distract themselves or something to look forward to. So hopefully the record can be part of some of that for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I find it interesting that such a beautiful record did come out of such a turbulent year. I know the album itself probably started to come to life probably a little bit before 2020, but you've turned the effects of a pandemic into something so spectacular. How much of screen violence was kind of in the works? Like, did you have a concept or kind of an overarching idea of what you wanted it to become before the pandemic really kicked off?
We had the title, yeah. So Screen Violence, the phrase was actually a proposed band name that we never ended up using. So I think at the time we just thought it would be too retro and we didn't want people to think we were doing a kind of 80s pantomime. We were definitely inspired by that era, but not only that. So we kept it thinking maybe we would use it for something later. And when we were still touring our last record, it was like summer 2019. And I was trying to think of ideas for what to suggest for what we could do. And I found this big list of band names. And that one just jumped out at me because I knew Ian and Martin would find something in that in terms of the aesthetic and the sounds. And I knew that it was something that I could write off of because I think there was a lot of layers to what that could mean for all of us and for me personally. We didn't intend there to be the third meaning of like screen violence, which is that we had to make it all remotely over Zoom and stuff. But I guess you can never tell where life's gonna go. And yeah, it was really great. Like selfishly, it was really great to have something to focus on during all that time because normally a band is an amazing but very chaotic part of your life because it's always like touring, moving, go, go, go. Like you miss weddings, you miss birthdays, you miss all the things because you're like have this toxic relationship with your band. But last year it became this really kind of grounding, centering thing. And it was actually very comforting to every day we go on our Zoom meeting at this time. And sometimes we don't talk about anything. We just make music and it's nice to do that for a few hours. But sometimes, we were processing what was happening on the phone call with each other in real time. And I think we're very lucky to have that. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting with all of that stuff. Like, it's not like you're having a routine as such, but it does kind of become that new normality in a way because of just you don't really have another option. And I guess interestingly, that you touch on working remotely. I mean, were there any elements about that process that you found yourself enjoying other than the fact you had the time to actually process it and actually be in that moment 100% rather than having your brain thinking about touring and all the other stuff that goes with it? Like for me, if I'm pushed outside my regular routine or my comfort zone, sometimes you get that unexpected bonus. Did you have any of those feelings in the process from the remote interactions or creating in that respect?
I think for me, it was a really important moment in the lyric writing of the band because something not that these songs are like narratives because they're all definitely still personal, but there's a lot more imagery and a lot more specific imagery in them than there has been on other records. And I don't know if I would have tried that as thoroughly as we did had we not had everything else about the band disappear. Like we kept saying how it was the most similar writing process to the first Churches album because for better or worse we were in a vacuum. Like what is a band when nobody ever sees you or hears you or and you don't go and play shows and you don't do promo, you're just in your house all the time. Like what is a band? And a band is writing. And I think I'm sure that everybody can relate to this, but like, I don't know, I think last year really helped solidify for me that we've wasted so much time in our lives, and I've wasted so much time in my life caring about things I shouldn't have cared about, or trying for things I shouldn't have been trying for. So I think when it came to making music, we were like, what is the point of this if it isn't something that you are really proud of and you really, really, really love it? And I think in other times I would have been like, oh, don't try that. That's risky. Don't do that. Don't put guitars on a CHVRCHES album. But I think that last year we were just like, what's the point in doing anything if we won't do it in a way that feels authentic and honest? So yes, I'm glad of that. Only that.
Well, I guess it's nice to have some form of silver lining. And off the back of that too, I really, really loved, I read in an interview that you did, I think it was last year, and you said that Screen Violence isn't the frilliest of CHVRCHES records, which is now officially my favorite descriptive word. And I may have to ask you if I can use it one time.
I mean, yes, you're most welcome. I think as soon as that came out of my mouth, I was like, frilly, what do you mean? But yeah, I just think because the third CHVRCHES record, it wasn't necessarily more pop in some ways, but it wasn't like, we were definitely trying to go for something that was much more direct and shinier in a lot of ways. So I think when it came, we knew that we'd done that and we enjoyed doing that. And that was the time that we got a lot out of. And I love that record. But by the time we'd finished touring it, we were definitely like, okay, it's enough sugar for now. Let's try something else, So yes, and I think that was a blessing in disguise in a way, because if we'd been trying to make a super happy, super shiny record during a lockdown, I don't think that would have worked. Luckily, we'd already planned to make a record that was relatively dark, and it just got darker as time went on.
Well, it's all, I mean, you didn't preempt it, but isn't it interesting that who could have known what was to come in the future after that? But oh, cute kitty cat in the back.
They're going. I have two cats, which I don't. There we go. I'm going to shut them out of this room. Excuse me. This is bad podcast etiquette. Excuse you. Yes, I did the thing where I adopted some cats in lockdown, who I love dearly, and they're very wonderful. But it's like 15 minutes before their dinner time, so they are going absolutely crackers.
Yes. Well, let's not. I won't keep them from their food, because I'm the same. I get very, very, very intense.
Do you run around and jump off walls and windows and things when you haven't had your snack?
Absolutely. If I haven't eaten, so I'm nearing my lunchtime. So if I get up and start running around, you know what?
Oh no.
And in terms of what you were doing during lockdown as well, I mean, obviously with live performances off the table for a little bit, did it give you guys a bit of time to, like, your live shows are incredible, so there's obviously not a lot of improvement as such, but did it give you time to kind of reconsider how you might come back out of the gates when you can really get back at it and bring this album to life on stage? Has anything changed in that respect?
Yeah. I think that, well, touring's always been such a huge part of CHVRCHES, just because of the background that we come from and the kind of bands we came up with. We just always knew that we wanted to be a band that was on the road. But I think for me, CHVRCHES has always been a bit of an adjustment, because I was never I wasn't a front person in any other band. I was always playing other instruments, and sometimes I would do some singing, but it wasn't just always me. There was someone else singing as well. So I went from trying to never be the front man to being the front man all the time. And I don't know, that took a long time to grow into, because I was never really like, Martin from CHVRCHES is a much more naturally good performer in center stage than me. So I feel like I've always had to kind of work on that and like split my way of thinking about it and be like, this is this kind of headspace, and writing is just such a different headspace, because for performing, I'm like, I don't really want to feel that vulnerable. I feel like people come to a show not to look at you. They come to a show to have you be like the backdrop that they can project their emotions onto in terms of what the songs mean to them. Like, you're kind of like just a vehicle for that. And I think that's awesome. And once I got to that way of thinking, it's been much easier to do it. But I do feel like I want the live show to be powerful, and like, I need to not be a super sensitive, super emotional person in that space. But when we're writing, I'm like, I have to be super sensitive and super emotional. So in a way, the fact that there has been so long without a live show, as much as that's horrible in a lot of ways, and we miss it a lot, and we miss everybody, we miss all the people that come to the shows. I think in a way it's been good because we've been locked in this little cupboard where we can just write and write and write and write, and we're already working on the new stuff, and yeah, and plan. So we're already planning, we've got planned the visuals for the shows, and we really know what we want to do, because I feel like by the time the shows come back, I want it to be really, really good. And I know that people coming to the shows, they're like, just give us something to release us from this for like an hour and a half. And that's what we want to do. So we're ready.
Well, that's extremely exciting. I know it may be a little bit longer before we can actually see you here in Australia, so we'll just have to look on from afar. But is there a particular song on Screen Violence that you are most excited to actually finally christen live in front of a crowd?
Man, I feel like
you to play favorites. So
I know, choose my favorite child. I don't know. I feel like Violent Delights has got an awesome kind of breakbeat thing in it, which will be great. But I think my favorite one is Asking for a Friend, the opening track on the record, because I feel like it's a very sad song in some ways, but it's very hopeful, and like there's just a massive release emotionally and sonically. So I feel like that one, it's one of the few that we thought about that when we were writing it, because it's just started to go in that way. We're like, maybe this is like Clearest Blue's twisted cousin. And then I was like, all right, Clearest Blue always goes well on the show, so maybe this is just a slightly more messed up version of that.
I love that. And I have proof. I have Violent Delights written, because every time I ask someone to pick a favorite, I pick a favorite because I feel like it's only fair. So I don't know if it's because I was a Shakespeare nerd. I was just instantly drawn to the title, but then I was like, oh yeah, this is my jam. So
oh, that's great. Well, I'm really glad that you got that, because I was starting to feel like just I'm a really big pretentious idiot, because so many people in interviews have said, oh, is it because of Westworld? And I was like, huh? I haven't seen Westworld, so I don't know. But I was like, I assume that we're all referencing the same guy. It's quite well known. And I was like, guys, you could even watch the film version of Romeo and Juliet. Right. You don't even have to read it. You can just watch it. But yes, I feel like I love a bit of a little literary knife twist in some lyrics. That's my favorite.
Bit of cheeky Will Shakespeare just in there for the mix. I'm a big fan, so I'm glad it was actually that, and I didn't accidentally embarrass.
It was Westworld. No, it wasn't.
But damn it. Now, side note, while we're chatting songs, just casually having Robert Smith on How Not to Drown.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, I know for you guys, I believe he was the ultimate person, living or dead, to actually collaborate with. Can you tell me the moment he sent you the vocals for that track?
I mean, I honestly still can't believe that this is a thing that we talk about. Like, I'm like, how is this life? What is happening? But yeah, and it was such a weird thing. We never thought that would happen. It happened so accidentally. It was through our manager, because all Cure fans know the new Cure album is in the works. We know this. So he had said to somebody he knew them, could you pass my email address on in case I can pitch CHVRCHES for a support slot or something? And then he got an email back from Robert Smith, because Robert Smith manages himself these days. And it just said like, aloha, Campbell, I hear you're looking for me. What do you want? And he was like, oh, what do I want? I don't know. So we sent him some music, and thinking that it would just be good for him to get a sense of the record. And then eventually it ended up with him being on a track, and we didn't hear anything for a few weeks. And then we were like, well, if this is as close as we got, I would say that's pretty amazing to know that Robert Smith knows you're a real human being and he's listened to your music. And then I wonder if he sat on it for a length of time so he could give us this fan experience. But he sent us the demo with his vocal on it on Halloween, when we were Martin and I were hanging out, and we were getting a little bit wine drunk, and we were going to watch a horror movie, and which is very on brand for the whole album, really. And then we got this email from Robert Smith being like, happy Halloween, I'm having spooky fun, here's the demo. We're like, what? And of course it was like basically what the final mix ended up being is what the demo was. So turns out he's very good at what he does. Who knew? I mean, we knew, because we all love The Cure. But
that's incredible. Like, you're going to be hard pressed to top Halloween this year, I feel. Like, not that I'm putting that on you, but yeah, that's going to be pretty tough to beat.
There's no point. I'm just going to go to bed. I'm not going to try.
Done. Yep. Yeah. In bed by 9. And I know in the past, like you personally, you've had some pretty incredible, like you've got a huge lineup of collaborations. I did supply Bleachers in there. I actually had Jack Antonoff on the podcast
Oh,
a
cool.
couple of weeks back too. He's an absolute sweetheart too. But is
Lovely
there
dude.
anyone actually left on the bucket list now? Have you ticked everyone off?
I mean, yeah, I like that in our minds we're always like, oh, we don't do that many features. And then when I look at the ones that we have done, I'm like, well, that's pretty it's pretty solid. Like I think it'll be difficult to top Robert in that way. So if we do something else, I feel like it'll be very different from that, you know. And I definitely, especially like Ian and Martin are such electronic music heads. I know they really love like the kind of AG Cook, hyperpop, PC music stuff, and SG Lewis. We really love his work, and I think it would probably be more in that space or working with somebody on a whole record. I think so. We'll see. We'll see. You never know, because I could be just talking shite. Because I would, if you'd said to me, "Will Robert Smith be on your album?" I'd be like, "No." So I don't know. Who knows what'll happen.
I like that though. It opens it up to anything. So I'm very excited. I'll be watching very closely to see what happens.
Thanks, man.
And I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, just about your earlier time in, earlier bands and that. So you started off not as the front woman, you said you were even drumming. I mean, I personally am still in love with your cover of Rage's Killing in the Name. Like, I'm
oh
like,
no.
Yeah, no, I can't not love it. But given these days you are so heavily linked to more of this like quote unquote synth pop world, what kind of stuff did you really grow up listening to that really like kind of shaped and helped you start this whole journey? Was it outside of those waters back in the day?
Yeah, well, I guess Ian and Martin both went to college to do music, so they are much more learned than me in all those ways. But I feel grateful that I grew up in a house not raised by musicians, but people who really loved music from a fan perspective. So like there was always like Annie Lennox and Whitney Houston and like the Eagles and all that stuff playing in the house that my parents would play. And then I was a British girl in the 90s, so obviously like Spice Girls and that kind of era of pop music. And then like I think to this day I can't remember any of my pin numbers, but I could remember like all the lyrics to an Atomic Kitten song, and I'm like, I don't know that that's the way that my brain should operate.
I love that so much though.
You know, but I think that I have an appreciation and a genuine love for pop music because that's what I loved when I was 11, so it's what I love now. But then I guess as a teenager it was definitely of the kind of Jimmy Eat World era of like alternative. I don't even know how much I like to call Jimmy Eat World emo, but I did a lot of like driving around listening to that, and then I think through that you find your way to other things. And I genuinely think that the guys always call me like harmonizer 5000 when we do recording, because I know that I don't think I'm good at that many things, but I'm very good at harmonies. I don't need to I can sing the lead and then I don't need to sing it through to check it. I'll just know what the harmony is, which is very odd. But I do think that that's from listening to so much of that kind of rock music, where like Jimmy Eat World is consistent stacked harmonies for a lot of the songs. And I would never sing Jimmy's part because I never thought that I would never imagine that I would be Jim Adkins. I always imagined I would be like, maybe they'll get a keyboard player and that'll be me. So I would always harmonize with the singers, or like harmonize with Alanis or Avril Lavigne or whatever it was. So it stood me in good stead in the long run.
Yeah, I feel like we must have grown up at a very similar era because you're name checking all of these things. I think the first album I bought wasn't Spice Girls, but the first single I ever bought myself on a CD was Wannabe. So I'm dating myself quite drastically here. But and then I was like Jimmy Eat World, all of that era. Yeah. And I do not class myself as a good singer, but I would still try to bust out the harmonies. But I reckon you've probably got me beat in the harmony.
Well, but I do think that there's something in that, like what the things you like to that formative time definitely stay with you. And I don't know. I think that the reason I hold on to like Jimmy Eat World out of all the bands I listened to at that time is they weren't mad misogynists in hindsight. Like loads of the stuff I listened to around that time, I now look at it and I'm like, whoa. Like so much of emo was about girls, but not for girls. Like you were selling records to girls about girls, but it wasn't anything to do with them, really. Like I look at like some Glassjaw lyrics and I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? but you didn't know. And it was a very specific time. It was like American Pie era, Girls Gone Wild. Like that's what young boys are taught, but that's also what young girls were taught. And then that's what I was picking up from society. But Jimmy Eat World, I don't feel like they were in that space. And also I feel like the stories and the lyrics were better. Like, and I do not that I'm saying Churches sounds like Jimmy Eat World, but I think that there's something in that in terms of like the keenness of our love for melody and the storytelling and the lyrics. And, you know, that led to me later loving like Rilo Kiley and Jenny Lewis and Nick Cave and those kinds of storytellers. But it had to start somewhere. Somebody had to start the fire. So,
well, I'm very glad they did. And you've turned into a prolific storyteller yourself. And given you have been in this journey for, you know, I believe like with the band now, you're clocking up a decade since like officially it all kicked off. If you could go back to Lauren in those first early days and offer a piece of advice, A, would you? And B, what would it be if you would?
I wonder. I think if I knew then what I knew now, what I know now, the experience of the band would have been different. So I wish that I could say, you're right for being this worried about some of these things, but ultimately it's going to be okay. It's going to be better than what you think it's going to be. You just try and breathe a little. But also I think if anything had changed, then it wouldn't have been the same band, you know, we wouldn't have been writing the same things. I wouldn't have been saying the same things, and maybe it wouldn't have connected with people in the same way. So I can look back at all the great parts and all the panic attacks and be like, it just had to be like that. It just had to be that way. Because if you changed any of those things in the sliding doors, look back on it, it would be different. And I guess, I don't know. I've been inside for too long now. I've been inside for like a year and a half, so I'm all wistful. But I don't know. I wouldn't change any of it for better or worse. I'm very, very lucky, and we know that. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's the best answer. And I think it sounds like a cop out, but I always think we end up where we're meant to be. And for better or worse, like, you know, it gets you there. So yes, very glad you are here and very glad you're on the brink of screen violence. But to quickly close us out with one final question before you go feed your cats so that they don't jump on the walls anymore. Given I have dragged you onto the Green Room podcast today and you have some live shows, hopefully in the not too distant future, what is one item you would like backstage in your green room on your next live tour that may keep you sane or help you kind of get back into the swing of things for live music?
I don't know. I feel like I live like Martin came around to my house once and looked in the fridge and was like, your fridge is basically what our rider is. And I'm like, that's why the stuff's on the rider. Like, I don't understand. Like, yes, I would like some honey and lemons. And yes, I would like some hummus. But I'm going to say like a bottle of Lefroy, because that's Ian from Church's special beverage. Like he's a real whiskey connoisseur. And yeah, it'll make me feel... I don't ever drink whiskey because I can't handle it. It's just too intense for me. I dry retch and then like get like teary eyed. I can't handle it. But I have such memories of that smell because it always makes me think of standing next to Ian when we're just about to go on stage because he's got a little cup of whiskey. So I'll know we're back in the game when there's a spicy Lefroy smell flying around the room.
I love that. I do secretly love to drink that, but obviously we won't make you drink it. But good to know. Just we'll get you like a little scent, like a little incense burn with that scent in it.
Yes. So I mean, I can't like once, maybe on New Year or like Burns night or something, I will try, but I have to like sip it. So like a tiny, tiny, tiny little siplet every time. I'm like, ooh, and then like breathe fire between every sip, which I think means you're not cut out for it. I think, but one day maybe I'll age into it. I like the idea of being like an older lady on a rocking chair who's seen just a lot of shit and like she's sipping on a spicy whiskey and she's not even flinching. I think that's when you know that you've traveled through the world.
I genuinely can't wait for that. I'll be right there next to you doing it too. We can do it together.
I was still listening to Jimmy Eat World and stuff on our rocking chairs.
Oh, this is too perfect, but I'm glad we have that to look forward to. But obviously we also have Screen Violence coming out. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's another beautiful CHVRCHES release. Congratulations on surviving what you have and coming out of it armed with this. And thank you for joining me on the Green Room today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was very fun. And sorry that my cats were being mental. They don't care about promo. They don't care who buys the kibble. They just want
That's why we love cats. That's why we love them.
Oh, thank you so much, pal.
Thank you.
Green Room with Tiana Speter is a podcast from the Handshake Agency Network, produced by Tiana Speter and Andrew Mast, with Pharrell D'Souza and Henry Gibson providing research. Recorded and engineered by Zig Parker, executive producer Craig Treweek.